As we head into this year's World's Strongest Man, defending champion Tom Stoltman has set his stall out to achieve something that would cement his legacy as an all-time legend of the sport. The three-peat. A feat managed only twice previously by the untouchable Bill Kazmaier and four-time champion Magnus Ver Magnusson. Tom would be looking to add a third name to the three-peat alumni. This got me wondering, should the Albatross manage such a ridiculous accomplishment, especially with such a strong field of competitors, what would it take for Tom to be recognised as the greatest strongman of all time? Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Boxing, Weights and Rugby YouTube channel. Let's talk strongman! So who is the strongest ever? A classic old school pub debate that really has no definitive metric for an answer. What do you rank as most important? Their highest peak? What they won? Who did they beat? How long did they do it for? And simply, just how strong were they? In short, the answer probably lies in a weird mishmash of all of the above. This debate crosses all sports, be it Messi or Ronaldo, Jordan or LeBron, Woods or Nicholas, and Ali or Sugar Ray Robinson. I am also a firm believer in the distinction that the best to ever do it does not necessarily mean the greatest. For example, Sugar Ray Robinson is widely regarded as the best boxer in history, but Ali transcended the sport and popular culture in a way that literally changed the world. On top of being one of the greatest heavyweights to ever live, he was surely the greatest.
I must be the greatest. I told the world.
So, alas, we must leave even more room for greatness. But for now, let's try and see what Tom would need to do to make him the strongest man to ever walk the earth. Firstly, who are the current incumbents of such a prestigious title? Well, we generally see the same three names bandied about when this discussion comes up. Firstly, the Dominator, Mariusz Pudzianowski. The only ever five-time world's strongest man. Despite being smaller than a large number of his compatriots, Mariusz was untouchable at Worlds through the mid-2000s. An unrelenting competitive spirit combined with a willingness to go places nobody else would meant time after time it was the legendary Pole who came out on top. His detractors will point to the infamous split of strongman federations watering down his competitions and his struggles at the heavier Arnolds, but his success at the world's biggest show means his face, and abs, remains synonymous with the sport of strongman to this very day. Next up, we have a man still competing to this day, Brian Shaw. The big American ushered in the era of giants was a huge part of turning the athletes we see today into the professionals that they are. At his peak, Brian had no weaknesses. Monstrously strong, but with a quickness and deftness that belied his incredible stature. Shaw has 4 World's Strongest Man titles at the time of writing, and aims to equal Mariusz this year in his final run and drive for 5. He is also a 3-time winner of the Arnold Strongman Classic and has a total of 26 international wins to his name. If it wasn't for the final man on this list, Brian would have won an untold number of World's Strongest Man titles. And finally, we have the man generally recognised as the current greatest strength athlete of all time, Big Z, Zydrunas Savickas. The Lithuanian also holds 4 World's Strongest Man titles, but has an unparalleled 8 Arnold Strongman Classic wins, to total up with a frankly ridiculous 84 international wins. The strongest shoulders ever, even to this day, Savickas is still competing and is the current World Masters champion. It is these sorts of feats that our boy Tom needs to better if he is going to be in the discussion for these sorts of accolades. So let's get started. I've seen it said in a number of places that the highest peak of any strongman was by one Hafthor Julius Bjornsson in 2018, when he went on to win every major competition he entered in that year. The Arnolds were at its heaviest ever, and World's Strongest Man was littered with amazing competition, but nobody could touch the mountain. This is what Tom needs to manage. The biggest criticism of the Scottish giant is his inconsistency. Having performed relatively poorly at this year's Arnold Classic, despite him carrying a hip niggle, it is not the first time Tom has shown up at the biggest shows outside of Worlds and it's his inconsistency that will need to improve at the heavier events if he is to win over his doubters. What has he won? Well, this one is pretty simple. In the last 3 years, Tom has gone second, first and first at Worlds, and won last year by a most significant margin. At 28 years old, Tom is still young for a strongman, and should be coming into the peak of his powers. If Tom can continue his incredible run at Worlds, the trophy cabinet should look heftily in his favour. Tom needs to add the other majors to his collection. The likes of the prestigious Arnold Strongman Classic, the Rogue Invitational and the Shaw Classic will all help Tom's argument, as they generally are perceived to be the heavier competitions in comparison to Worlds. Whom did they beat? Brian and Zaviskus both had each other, as well as the likes of young Eddie Hall and Hafthor Bjornsson coming through. This is generally viewed as literally the strongest era ever in the sport. But Tom is not exactly short of incredible competition. He himself has already beaten Shaw alongside the likes of former winners Martin Zlisis and Alexei Novikov. Plus, with the return of Mateusz Kilievskovski and the emergence of Mitch Hooper and Trey Mitchell, Tom certainly isn't short of some fabulous competition. Just how long did they do it for? Longevity goes a long way to greatness. Time allows for the classic trope of facing and overcoming adversity on multiple occasions, and this is what makes a person truly great. Tom could do this for the highest level for another 10 years if he wants to, and if his body holds out. And even then, he'll still not be going quite as long as Brian Shaw. When you sit and think about the longevity of these men, it beggars belief. Big Z first competed at World's Strongest Man in 1998, and won his last in 2014. Shaw has reached every final of the World's Strongest Man since 2009, and Marius won 50% of the World's Strongest Man titles available across an entire decade. These are unbelievable freaks of natures, but just shows how long we could see Big Tommy competing at the very top for. How strong are they? This feels like a weird one, right? Two-time World's Strongest Man? Of course he's strong. But in strongman, traditionally, Worlds actually tends to favour the better movers rather than simply the static monsters. Tom's detractors will say that he hasn't shown his best when it comes to the heavier events at the Arnold. But this can all change. Tom holds the Atlas Stone world record and is certainly one of the greatest stone lifters ever. There is also reason that the likes of Eddie Hall and Thor are held in such high regard despite only winning Worlds once. They are the greatest deadlifters ever. Whatever you think of who holds the record, these two are the only two men to ever conventionally lift over half a ton. Big Tommy has openly targeted this as a way to silence his doubters, and amazingly, we can follow along in his progress on the road to 505 on the Stoltman YouTube channel. With this year's World's Strongest Man just around the corner, can Tom take a huge step towards cementing his legacy as the greatest ever from Great Britain, and continue on that journey towards the pantheon of immortality that is the strongest man in history? We can't wait to find out. Thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and let us know in the comment section which sport you're here for. Drop a B for boxing, a W for weightlifting and an R for rugby. Thank you and have a great evening.